Hey there, self-storage investors. Coach Roel here. And as is becoming a bit of a pattern here with my little solo videos and podcasts, I like to focus a little bit more on some of the newer members of our community and those who may be newer to the concept or idea of self-storage investing. And with this week is no exception. So I want to go over the top 10 reasons why self-storage is the king. So let's jump right on in here. Number one, the reason why self-storage investing is king is there's more opportunities, over 25 plus million units in the United States alone. Now, I know some of our viewers are international, but looking at the U.S. as basically the epicenter of self-storage units, self-storage industry, I wanted to get a little bit more updated statistics, and I found these, and see if I can pull this onto the screen here. Here we go. The annual industry revenue is actually at 39 billion. This is as of 2019. Number of storage facilities is a range of 45,000 to 60,000 individual facilities. And the total rentable storage, self-storage space, 1.7 billion square feet. So there's tons of opportunity, and the industry, the demand for self-storage units is doing nothing but growing in the United States, at least. The reason number two is that there's the highest demand and fastest, it is the highest demand and fastest growth sector. And I found a funny little article actually back from 2015 on the Huffington Post, is that America has more self-storage facilities than McDonald's, because apparently we're all hoarders. And I thought that was quite telling in a sort of a tongue-in-cheek kind of way, that I don't see the trend really changing. I mean, on a big picture sort of point of view, the Western societies as a whole, with the United States being a very good example of that, is the trend is going towards consumerism, basically. Yes, with this new normal, the pandemic, some of that, the supply chains have been kind of disrupted, and globalization, especially the manufacturing of personal protective equipment and the sort being manufactured all mainly in China, has been disrupted. And companies, or not companies, but nations are looking to make sure to manufacture some of these very important items in-house or within their own countries, so that this doesn't happen again. But by and large, Western countries, with the U.S. leading the way as an example, is by and large moving towards further and further into consumerism. People are buying stuff. And as soon as we get back to normal in 12 months, 18 months from now, I expect that this will just continue to grow as well. Where are we here? Point number three, it's the easiest to fund according to banks and the Small Business Authority and private lending. Why? Because because of all the other 10 reasons, all the other 9 reasons I'm going to list here. But if you think about it, it's a very stable investment. There's not a whole lot of moving parts. It's basically steel roll-up doors and empty space. There's no electrical, there's no plumbing, there's no people that you have to deal with. It's basically you buy a big open warehouse space and you divide it individually. You buy in bulk, like at wholesale, and then you sell at retail, which I'll get into a little bit further as well. But yeah, historically, it's been a very stable asset class, or niche asset class within commercial real estate that lenders just absolutely prefer in many cases. They're also the highest profits and cash flow per square foot. Once again, it's just large, open, empty space with some reasonable security around the facility, and people get to have their own locks on their own facility, and there's little to no, very little, I shouldn't say little to no, but very little liability, because the owners of the facilities don't even have access to the individual units that are rented out. So it's really on the individual to keep their stuff secure. As long as they have a lock on it, they put some reasonable security for the facility and the fence, and oftentimes there's a keypad for the gate that has limited hours as well. It's not necessarily 24/7 in some cases, but by and large, after that, it's on the individual renter of the unit. So that turns out to be actually quite an efficient proposition for those who own and operate self-storage facilities. Number 5, it's the easiest to manage for reasons that I had just gone over, but also with a trend towards kiosks in the cloud that started around mid-2000s, like 2004, 2005, whereas you can see on the right-hand side of the screen there's an example of a customer service center kiosk. And the trend has been going in that direction, as like I said, for about 15 years now in the self-storage industry, where not necessarily that facilities are 100% unmanned and automated by these kiosks, but even if a facility has office hours, say during business hours from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., for example, after hours, kiosks like the one you see in that picture can actually accommodate people who, let's say, in the middle of the night or on weekends, need to be able to rent a space in a very timely fashion. These kiosks allow people to actually get access to a storage unit without having to come in contact with a live human being in person, which is actually quite apropos with what we're going through now. A lot of storage facilities are advertising that they can accommodate contactless or touchless renting or moving in of a unit. So with technology, it's quite easy to manage these days as compared to what it was prior to the last 15 years. There's also massive passive income, in particular referring to profit centers. So if you've not yet utilized or researched the services of a self-storage facility, typically you go in and somebody going in there is usually, as we say, in the trauma and transition phase of their life of some sort, or some sort of a life event. Picture downsizing, moving, transferring jobs, getting a divorce, selling their house, so they got to clear up the clutter. Those kinds of things, trauma and transition is what I'm talking about. So when somebody comes into an office space, front office, they're going to need things like boxes, maybe, packaging tape, plastic sheets for storing furniture, for covering couches, chairs, mattresses. They may need a lock as well, like an overlock, one of those disc locks that goes on a lot of facilities. So there are these upsells that can also be included, and even some kiosks that can act like a vending machine that, if you could see at the bottom there of that example on the right-hand side, once again, there's a little slot that can spit out a disc lock at any time of night when somebody needs to rent one of the facilities. So it's not just the rental of the unit itself. There's little upsells that if it's present at the right time, are proving and have proven to be quite profitable profit centers as well. It's also recession-proof and inflation-proof. I just like to the ring of that. I'll dial that back a little bit and say that self-storage facilities are more recession-resistant and inflation-resistant. Once again, for reasons I already mentioned, it's not like they're automatically recession-proof. It's just that it has a nice ring to it, right? Recession-resistant is what I would really say is more of an accurate term, because in the unknown stage that we're at now with this new normal and the pandemic, and many news outlets warning of a potential recession with so many people out of work, we may be on the doorstep of another large and significant recession globally. And during that time, again, as people are transitioning or they're going through some sort of challenging life event, they would oftentimes need temporary space to place their stuff. Again, picture someone who is getting a job in a new state or a new province or a new city. They may need to temporarily store their stuff in a self-storage facility while they're also looking to sell their property and staging that property so that they're able to get the best price for the sale of that real estate of their home. Also, imagine small businesses that unfortunately may have to close down a location or two, and they need to be able to store some of that furniture temporarily before they can either open their doors back up again or to change or downsize to a smaller facility or office space or what have you. So all of these reasons combined and more would be reasons why that even during a downturn, self-storage facilities still get to see a fairly consistent demand, if not an uptick in demand during times like this, like when the economy at large or a city or a local area at large is transitioning from a place of prosperity to recessionary place. And inflation resistant, reason why that's mentioned as well is because of the, in large part because of the real estate aspect of self-storage facilities. As the central banks of the world and in the United States, as the Federal Reserve pumps out more money to be able to create stimulus to keep the economy going and keep people, living from month to month or even week to week, as it were, to these days, all that money has an effect on the pricing of things. And it's seen also in real estate that when there's a lot more money pumped into the system to the tune of a few $1 trillion just in the last few months alone, then people start bidding up the prices for stuff. And it's not so much that real estate is going up in value, it's that the value of currencies is actually going down. I know that's a whole other topic that's kind of in left field and almost delving into theoretical, but that's basically the idea. The more money that is pumping around the system or circulating around the system, the lower the value of each of those dollars and the higher the prices of hard assets like real estate. And that's a definite, significant aspect to self-storage investing as well, is the real estate aspect to it. And the last three, I'll kind of fast forward 8, 9, and 10, is there's no tenants, no toilets, and no trash. So I'll speak to those of us who have experience investing in residential real estate, single-family homes, flippings, but mostly buy and hold type things. They do have their place, and I still personally invest a significant part of my day-to-day activities is spent with residential real estate. But a big attractor to self-storage investing is there are no tenants, toilets, or trash. There's a saying, and I don't know if I'm going to do it justice, but there's some jaded residential real estate investors who say something to the effect of, real estate investing is great except for the tenants, which is kind of tongue-in-cheek because a lot of people assume that real estate investing has to come with tenants. I mean, if you can picture a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house that is totally empty, and it can bring you income every single month, rental income, not bad. But you throw in a tenant, and there's enough bad apples out there, professional tenants, and people, landlords who have horror stories of just the few tenants that are bad that ruin it for the rest. That makes it difficult, right? Late payment on rent, parties, police activity, or destroying a property, or to on the extreme side. So sometimes if you don't know how to manage people, then residential real estate can be very challenging. So there's the aspect of, in self-storage investing, there are no tenants, which can be seen as very much a positive. It's a little bit easier to manage inanimate objects, and it's just basically a garage space, and people just let it sit there. There's no toilets, I mentioned earlier. There's no plumbing in any of these units that you see there at the bottom of your screen. There's no toilets. There's nothing to get clogged. There's no plumbing. No plumbing systems that has to be repaired or maintained, or can be clogged up, and there's no trash, relatively speaking. You've heard of, and you've seen, there was a very popular, I don't know if the show is still on these days, very popular show called Hoarders that many of you may be familiar with. And the horror stories, imagine a lot of these people actually rented their spaces and had hoarded stuff that just went literally from floor to ceiling in every room of their house. And when they end up getting evicted, which is how they end up on one of these television shows, the stories of trash and of hoarders is horrific. And for the landlord, having to deal with that and clean that up, well, this is where you hear these urban legends, not so much urban legends, but based on truth, that there's a lot of trash. With self-storage facilities, if people leave their stuff behind, the operators can either just fill up a dump truck and have pay somebody to a couple people to fill up that dump truck and have it hauled away, and take one of those leaf blowers and clean out the floor, and it's ready to rent to the next person, which would be worst case scenario. Or they could hold an auction, as you've seen on Storage Wars and reality TV shows of that sort, where people abandon their self-storage units, and they give the owners no other option but to auction off their stuff. So there you have it. Top 10 reasons why self-storage is the king. And actually, this is a very Reader's Digest condensed version of what we do talk about in some of our trainings and our master classes that we do here at selfstorageinvesting.com. So there you have it. Once again, my name is Coach Roel. Hope you enjoyed those top 10 reasons. And stay safe out there, and hope to see you again soon in a video in the very near future. Thanks again for joining us here at Self Storage Investing. We really, really appreciate it. For more great content like this, make sure to click the subscribe button below this video. And be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Bigger Pockets. You can also visit us at our main website at selfstorageinvesting.com, where you'll find even more free content, our ebook, and registration to our free webinars and education courses, and much, much more. Once again, for more great content like this, please click the subscribe button below. Thank you.